After Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny died in a prison in Kharp in Russia's far north on February 16, 2024, his team managed to secure samples of his biological material and send them abroad to laboratories in 2 Western countries. Tests confirmed that Navalny had been poisoned. His widow, Yulia Navalnaya, announced, "We managed to transfer Alexei's biological materials abroad. Laboratories in 2 different countries conducted examinations. These laboratories, independently of each other, concluded that Alexei was poisoned," she said. According to Navalnaya, the samples were obtained back in February 2024 and were transported abroad securely. She stressed that the findings have public value and should be published. "We all deserve to know the truth." Navalnaya added that she would not be guided by political considerations on this issue. "I state that Vladimir Putin is responsible for the murder of my husband Alexei Navalny. I accuse Russian intelligence services of developing banned chemical and biological weapons. I demand that the laboratories which carried out the tests make the results public. Stop playing nice with Putin for the sake of some greater consideration. You won't be able to appease him. As long as you stay silent, he won't stop," Navalnaya said. Yulia Navalnaya pointed out that prison staff in their testimony described convulsions that could indicate her husband had been poisoned. The forensic report makes no mention of convulsions, but it does note bruises on Navalny's elbows and knees, sustained 30 to 40 minutes before his death, as well as bleeding at the crown of his head. "Alexei was convulsing and struck the floor. That's most likely where those marks came from," Yulia said. Navalny's team also highlighted another detail. Video footage from the final days of his life seems not to exist, even though he had been under constant surveillance throughout his imprisonment. On a map of the prison that Yulia Navalnaya showed, 63 cameras are marked in the block where her husband was held, and there is no footage from any of them, she said. She believes those recordings may contain evidence that contradicts the official version of his death.
Ukraine has already managed to thwart 2 offensive operations by the Russian army, but Russia is preparing for 2 more offensive operations in the autumn. This was stated by President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky in an interview with Sky News. "In my opinion, we acted very timely. We thwarted 2 operations, completely thwarted 2 offensive operations. The third, I think, honestly, in a day or 2 we will understand that they suffered heavy losses, and nothing worked out for them, but I need 1 or 2 days to say this publicly. They are preparing for 2 more offensive operations in the autumn. I believe that things went much worse for the Russians than they expected. They are doing much worse than they reported to Putin. Putin doesn't know about this. I think he doesn't realize it, but he has schedules, he has reports, and at some point he will see it," said Zelensky. According to him, the mood in Europe and the US is indeed changing a little. "Overall, I am glad, truly glad, that all of Russia's advances, all of their offensive missions, there have been 3, and they are planning 2 more heavy offensive campaigns. Their last 3 missions have failed. In my view, this is a very important signal. Firstly, what I told the Europeans and the White House, that the Russians would not succeed in taking our east, and that what they are telling you, that they can occupy the city of Sumy, all of this is lies and manipulation, and we would prove it. And that is exactly what happened. The Russians lost 3 campaigns," he told. Zelensky added that the Russians had suffered heavy losses in manpower and equipment and are now under great strain. Meanwhile, he noted that Ukrainian forces should be supported with weapons and financial assistance that goes into weapons production, and then Ukraine will be able to withstand 2 more Russian offensive campaigns. Recall, British intelligence, analysts from the Institute for the Study of War and the authoritative publication Bloomberg almost unanimously state that Russia is carrying out a large-scale regrouping of its forces, redeploying up to 100,000 troops to the Donetsk front. The troops are being withdrawn from the Kharkiv, Sumy and even Kherson regions in order to concentrate the striking force to successfully achieve the seizure of the entirety of the Donetsk region. The discourse is focused on the forces referred to by Russian propagandists as elite. These are the units of the 40th and 155th Marine Brigades, the 177th Marine Regiment of the Caspian Flotilla, units of the 11th and 76th Airborne Assault Brigades, as well as the 70th Motorized Rifle Regiment. Some analysts predict that such a concentration of forces points to Russia's intention to focus its autumn offensive on capturing the still unoccupied part of the Donetsk region, in particular the areas of Dobropilya, Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka. At the same time, the decrease in activity in the Sumy and Kharkiv directions indicates the failure of Russian attempts to create a so-called buffer security zone in the north. Oleksandr Kovalenko, military columnist at information resistance think tank, calls for caution about the news of the scale of Russian troops redeployment. He confirms the reports about individual Russian units being redeployed closer to the Donbass front, but believes the global concentration of forces to be an exaggeration. The Philippine Coast Guard said Tuesday 2 Chinese Coast Guard ships hit a Filipino fishing vessel with powerful water cannons for nearly 30 minutes, resulting in significant damage, including in the captain's cabin and the bridge. A glass window was shattered and injured a personnel, while the deluge of water caused a short circuit that affected electrical outlets and 5 outdoor air conditioning units, it said. A Chinese Navy warship also broadcast a radio notice announcing live-fire exercises at the shoal, which caused panic among Filipino fishermen, said the Philippine Coast Guard. The Philippine Coast Guard and fisheries ships were deployed to the shoal on Tuesday to provide fuel, water, ice and other aid to more than 35 fishing boats in the area. Several friendly countries have backed the Philippines on the nature reserve. A statement from U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called the Chinese action yet another coercive move to advance sweeping territorial and maritime claims in the South China Sea at the expense of its neighbors. The UK and Australia also expressed concern, and the Canadian Embassy in the Philippines said it opposed attempts to use environmental protection as a way to take control over the disputed Scarborough Shoal.